The year is 1214. The place, Zhongdu, the middle capital of the Jin Dynasty. A city whose stone walls claim to defy any army. But no walls could defy Genghis Khan. This is the story of his first, relentless siege. A masterpiece of cold, brutal calculation. In the smoky dawn, the colossal walls of Zhongdu are already a tomb, not a shield. Within, the air is thick not with cannon smoke, but the stench of fear and betrayal. A gaunt, terrified soldier attempts to scale the inner wall, clawing uselessly at the slick stone, abandoning his post as the chilling, distant howls of the Mongol army echo from beyond the perimeter. The city is still a dazzling display of imperial splendor, gold-glazed roofs and rich silks, but the palace heart is rotten. High officials, cloaked in panic and despair, choose the quick, private violence of a ceremonial dagger rather than face the inevitable. The court, paralyzed by rivalry, cannot even agree on a commander. Outside, Genghis Khan sits motionless upon his horse. He is the ultimate, unhurried architect. His gaze is fixed and unreadable, an expression of unyielding resolve as he surveys the intricate, overwhelming sea of Mongol yurts encircling the city. His strategy is not one of a sudden, glorious assault, but of suffocation. It is a brutal, patient war of attrition. The city is already purging itself. A gruesome purge of officials who spoke of surrender. The internal collapse has begun. Soon, the Jin Emperor will flee south in disguise, leaving the fate of his capital to the iron boot of the great Khan and the ashes of a starving populace. This is not a battle. This is an execution. This was Zhongdu at its height. Majestic, vibrant, the very symbol of Jin imperial power. Far away, a young Genghis Khan addressed his unified Tumans, his power already absolute. The Mongol invasion route was a bloody line traced relentlessly toward the Jin Dynasty capital. Inside the palace, frantic officials argued in chaos, lacking any cohesive, unified leadership. The great Khan issued his order, a total, patient investment of the city, cold and absolute. Desperate peasants attempted to flee, but Jin guards pushed them back, sealing their fate.
Let us through, please!
Mongol engineers commenced massive construction of siege towers, methodical and ominous. Inside, quartermasters meticulously scraped back meager rations. Starvation was precise. Commanders like Subutai agreed to the Khan's strategy. Wait for the city to eat itself. A minister, in terror, heard the city's self-destruction escalate to an internal horror. An unbroken cordon of cavalry closed the final, invisible circle, isolating Zhongdu entirely. A trembling hand lowered a small plea for aid, a futile message from the dark wall. Historical data flashes. The scale of the army, the immense walls, the crushing siege length. Inside a smoke-filled temple, officials burnt silk and gold, praying for divine aid. A Mongol general surveyed the fields, a scorched earth of burned, abandoned crops. In the black market, priceless jade was cruelly refused for a handful of dry rice. Imposing Mongol cavalry stood silent, a force of absolute discipline and crushing patience. Starving soldiers abandoned their posts, slipping away into the riot-torn interior, demoralized. Genghis Khan received the report of the purges, a cold, satisfied smile on his lips. A desperate Jin sortie was instantly cut down by the waiting, flawless Mongol lines.
We are surrounded!
Citizens burned their own homes and belongings for heat, destroying their past for survival. The general reported, the internal revolt was now uncontrollable. The city was broken. A trembling Jin official was forced to read the humiliating terms of surrender aloud. An immense line of gold, silk, and horses poured from the gate, the colossal tribute. A silk official's robe was rudely tossed into a Mongol wagon, signifying confiscation. Genghis Khan accepted the scroll, his face cold and unreadable, a decisive, final victor. Mongol units systematically stripped the city of all resources, leaving only the shell. Outside the walls, a soldier set fire to the last remaining granary, scorched earth complete. The Mongol army withdrew, leaving the Jin leadership abandoned in a ruined, starving capital. A time jump. The Mongol army returned a year later, as promised, for the final brutal destruction. 1 year later, a massive cavalry charge surged toward the colossal, silent walls of Zhongdu. The few remaining Jin defenders cowered, their morale completely shattered by terror. Mongol engineers swiftly assembled a massive battering ram, an industrial, methodical threat. A final volley of rusted arrows was a desperate, futile gesture that fell harmlessly short. A colossal stone projectile smashed violently into the wall, shattering the ancient stone defense. Engineers under shield cover filled the moat, their advance methodical and protected. A desperate commander gave his last 3 loyal men a hopeless order to reinforce. The battering ram's final, crushing impact splintered the main gate wide open. Mongol assault infantry poured through the breach, instantly overwhelming the defense. Horse archers rode the ramparts, raining arrows onto fleeing soldiers in the streets below. Civilians huddled in a burning building, their faces illuminated by smoke and rising flames. A Mongol general calmly directed the systematic destruction of all government buildings. A bloody saber violently cut the silk Jin banner in 2, ending their rule symbolically. A Mongol foot soldier's iron boot deliberately crushed a glazed imperial roof tile. Artisans and engineers were ruthlessly conscripted for the Mongol army's siege corps. A Mongol soldier lit a large beam, contributing to the widespread systematic arson. Large city sections were engulfed in massive, unchecked flames, an apocalyptic sight. An officer contaminated the drinking water, ensuring no chance of sustained survival. Mongol cavalry rode through the palace halls, shattering the imperial furnishings beneath their horses. An iron horseshoe ground the marble palace floor, the ultimate act of desecration. Soldiers systematically burned all written records, annihilating the Jin Dynasty's history. A desperate rush for the gate was brutally cut down by the waiting cavalry outside. The Mongol army used the colossal walls to stage final demolition charges against the city. A small pet bird, a symbol of opulence, screamed, trapped in its cage by smoke. Heavy cavalry cornered and mercilessly cut down the last loyalist resistance. The immense line of Mongol supply wagons was fully loaded with all the colossal plunder. A Mongol hand seized a jade-handled child's toy, an intimate plunder from the rubble. The army withdrew, leaving a small garrison and a chilling, ruined city behind. Zhongdu, once powerful, was reduced to a massive, smoking, ruined shell on the plain. A skeletal hand in the ash clutched a discarded wooden doll, the ultimate tragedy. The grand avenues were choked with the burned-out husks of former, great buildings. A black-feathered raven landed on the shattered Jin imperial banner pole. Mongol soldiers systematically hauled away all reusable stone and metal resources. Genghis Khan rode through the ruins, confirming the utter devastation with cold resolve. The vast, empty parade ground was marked only by the wall's colossal, cold shadow. A Mongol bow was slowly lowered, the final, non-verbal signal of total, finished victory. Few Jin survivors emerged, surveying the utter ruin of their former, great city. A small child's shoe, forgotten and covered in a thick layer of fine ash and debris. The immense Mongol column, laden with plunder, receded across the northern plains. A burned official's name seal lay broken in the ash, a symbol of administrative collapse. Officials tried to write a decree on damaged silk, a futile attempt at governance. The vast northern plain lay empty, marked only by the permanent scar of Zhongdu. Genghis Khan personally oversaw the methodical distribution of the vast tribute spoils. A survivor's skeletal hand sifted pale, sickly grain from the cellar dirt. The colossal stone walls stood, breached and blackened, a monument to utter defeat. A Mongol arrow was embedded in the splintered imperial throne, the final execution. Historical texts detail the fall's strategic consequence, splitting the Jin Dynasty. The camera panned over the shattered, empty skeleton of the immense stone wall. The Mongol black tug was planted firmly on the highest, most intact city tower. Lam Vik Nai Dadatyu Ka. Script will be created for P95, P105. The Jin survivors were forced to eat grass and human flesh to survive the famine. A crippling winter storm swept over the ruins, freezing the few remaining survivors. Mongol patrols returned to check for any remaining valuables or hidden resources. The ground was now littered with the skeletal remains of thousands of starved horses. An old man mourned the lost history of the city, all records burned to ash. The Jin court in the south received news of the sack. Panic was immediate. Mongol generals discussed the new war plan, expansion further south into China. A lone guard stood watch over the ruins, a final, solitary figure of defeat. Genghis Khan issued his ultimate decree. Zhongdu must never be rebuilt. The entire city was now a colossal, silent graveyard, the Mongol strategic victory. The dust settled, but the silence remained. This was the terrifying legacy of Genghis Khan's conquest, the first crushing blow that doomed the Jin Dynasty. The ground, once the grand avenues of Zhongdu, was now nothing more than a handful of pulverized ash and dirt, scattered slowly by a passing breeze, a physical metaphor for the city's erasure. From afar, the destruction was a permanent scar on the northern plain, a hazy black silhouette visible for miles, the haunting scale of the strategic wound. The very ground was a testament to the brutality of the final sack, a desolate landscape strewn with the bleached bones of the slain, exactly as recorded in the history of the time. The Jin Emperor, having fled far south, was now a lonely figure, forever riding a dusty, empty road toward the Yangtze, irrevocably splitting his government and weakening the dynasty beyond repair. His former capital lay conquered, its symbols, the emperor's face cracked in stone, the throne pierced by a Mongol arrow, now monuments to his utter defeat. The great Khan himself rode slowly through the breached, ruined gates, a cold, satisfied expression confirming the success of his patient plan. His black tug, the symbol of his power, was planted on the highest tower, the ultimate claim of dominion. The last act was not rest but preparation. The heavy leather saddle was placed on a warhorse, and the vast, immense column of the Mongol army moved again, laden with the city's wealth, the human capital, and the spoils of war. Zhongdu was simply the foundation for the next, inevitable campaign, leaving behind only the blackened skeleton of a colossal ruin and the profound, absolute silence of a conquered empire.